On today's show, Christian Wood signs a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. What does he bring to this Lakers team? How does he fit with LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Could he possibly be a starter for the Lakers? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Look, groceries are already super expensive, so why don't you get a little bit of cash back in your pocket for all that cash that you're shelling out next time you head to the grocery store? Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Just link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that simple. Other apps give you points that don't really amount to much, but with Ibotta, you get cash back that you can use to cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or even gift cards. You earn cash back on hundreds of online brands, retailers with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and so many more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's Ibotta, I-B-O-T-T-A, in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKED. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Lakers, Andy Kamenetzky, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcast, and on YouTube, just search Locked On Lakers. Andy, Christian Wood signing a 2-year deal with the Lakers, second year, player option. The LA Lakers, the next in a long line of teams that have convinced themselves that Christian Wood is the answer to their problems. So immediate reaction, good or bad signing for the Lakers?
Well, I mean, the good news, first of all, for the Lakers is that he doesn't actually need to be Christian Wood, the solution to all their problems. Which, I mean, I think in a lot of ways is a different situation than, say, Dallas or Houston, or even going back to Detroit, where Christian Wood first broke out like as a full-time, full rotational NBA player. I think there was a lot more anchored in terms of the importance on the team with Christian Wood, which isn't to say that I think Christian Wood isn't important for the Lakers, because I actually think this roster spot and him joining the team is important. But they're not necessarily looking to build anything around Christian Wood. If Christian Wood plays really well this season, he is almost certainly not going to be a Laker the following season, because of CBA rules. Everybody will be able to outbid the Lakers, assuming, there's a market for Christian Wood. But this is a real opportunity for him to show that he can be more than just an empty calories scorer on a lousy team, which, fair or not, and I think in certain respects, probably both, that is Christian Wood's reputation.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's perfect, because you're saying it's, he's not an important piece, but if, maybe if things work well, then
he's not important. He's important, but he's not what the team is built around.
Good. Like, that's already step number one in convincing yourself that the signing of Christian Wood was good for your team.
He is not the solution. Like they were not lacking big man play, like front court play. And then they said, let's put all this on Christian Wood. The Lakers already have AD. They've got LeBron. They've got Rui Hachimura. They've got, Taurean Prince. They've got Jared Vanderbilt. Like, they've got a lot of guys, Jackson Hayes, if he can finally really get his proverbial stuff together as a young player now, on a second opportunity. There are front court options with this team. Christian Wood, I think, is a talented guy, and I think he absolutely has a role with this team, and it's an important one. But the Lakers are not going to be necessarily dependent on Christian Wood to have success, but he's somebody that maybe can push them over the top.
So what do you envision that role being for Christian Wood then? With that,
I envision him as the backup center coming off the bench. I would be surprised and frankly alarmed if he started. Just not even so much about Christian Wood, because he and Anthony Davis, I think, can play very well off each other You know, certainly offensively, I think they complement each other extremely well. Defensively, it's a wash in the sense that Christian Wood doesn't really complement anyone defensively. So in that sense, it doesn't really matter who you're pairing him up with.
But AD's kind of the type of big that can maybe make up for a little bit of Wood's, shortcomings defensively.
Absolutely. And that would be, I think one of the things anticipated with putting them together. But the two of them, I think, actually can play together and likely will. But I think it would be more with second units, because if those two are the starting 4 and 5, that means LeBron is playing the 3. And defensively, I think that's an absolute non-starter. Offensively, you could have some issues with, LeBron and AD not providing enough spacing. But defensively, you can't have LeBron play the 3. And there's no way, I think, to really, jigger this thing to make it work in ways that, frankly, are even worth it. I don't know why you would do it in the first place. But I think Christian Wood can be, the first big off the bench, certainly one of the first players to come in once the game started. And I think he can play a really important role as one of the focal points offensively with that second unit.
Now, but we know that AD has had this resentment towards playing the 5, throughout his career. So do you not view this move, or even, the addition of Jackson Hayes, as kind of these moves to where maybe he doesn't have to play at the 5 as much next year? I know you talked about, starting Christian would probably be a mistake at this point, but, how do we kind of factor that into this whole situation? Or do you fully expect them to kind of run LeBron back at the 4 again?
I mean, to some degree, it depends on how you're defining as much, in terms of how, will he be playing it as much? Last year, Anthony Davis played 100% of his minutes at center last year. So if this year, with Christian Wood there and him playing with Wood as part of a second unit group, if AD played, say, 15 to 20% of his minutes at the 4, that's less. That would be trying to meet Anthony Davis, if not halfway, part of the way. I think it is impossible to meet him halfway, much less all the way, because AD is going to be playing the majority of his minutes with LeBron. And I don't think it is possible to play the majority of his minutes with LeBron without playing center, because I just don't think you can make LeBron a 3 defensively. I mean, it's not even great offensively, but defensively, it's an issue. Honestly, at this point, LeBron defensively is more ideal as an undersized center than he is a small forward. So I feel like you can give AD a little more of what he wants. Truth be told, I think a lot of this is about making AD feel heard. And I think it's important that he feels heard. He's one of the superstars of this team. He's their focal point, certainly for the future, and he's their franchise face moving forward. But in a lot of ways, not getting what he wants right now, it's really more about LeBron, I think, than AD himself. I mean, you can argue that maybe, 4 years since they won that championship with him playing at least, about half of his minutes at the 4, I don't know if AD necessarily is as physically equipped himself to play as much 4 as I think he would like to. But again, LeBron, I think, is the factor here that often gets overlooked. It's really not about AD. It's more about LeBron.
You've mentioned the concerns, right, about not being able to play LeBron at the 3, and maybe more so that's the bigger issue here than, AD playing the 5 at the end of the day. At this point, then, just as you're kind of envisioning what this situation looks like with Christian Wood, do you expect there to be more success with the LeBron Wood lineups, where it's those two guys playing, those 2-man lineups, or the Wood AD lineups having more success?
I think they both actually can be pretty successful. I mean, some of this is going to depend on who else is on the floor, but LeBron and AD are 2 guys who can play with anybody. And I picture more time with Christian Wood and AD than LeBron and Wood, just because I feel like you're giving AD more potentially of what he wants if he's playing just with Wood, as opposed to, the time out there with Christian Wood. And I think they're going to be looking to try to reduce LeBron and AD's minutes anyway. And that's part of, I think, one of the great things about this team now being quite deep. I mean, this is a really deep roster, these Lakers, with a lot of skill players. And, as far as the idea of like trying to load manage LeBron or AD, I think the West is going to be too tough for them to try to get in at least the top 6 and avoid the play-in, while giving these guys nights off for just non-specific maintenance as opposed to an injury. But I think with Christian Wood now in the mix, and Rui, and D'Angelo Russell, and Austin Reeves, like they've got a lot of guys now that can create for others, can create their own shots, and hopefully it just allows LeBron and AD to play maybe 3 to 4 minutes less each game. That adds up over the course of a season. Like that's a really big deal, particularly for LeBron.
How will Christian Wood ultimately work out with the Lakers? Will the added depth help the Lakers in their pursuit of locking in one of those top 6 playoff seeds? You're going to cover for all of that and more over at Locked On Lakers. Andy, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Anytime, man.